Little lunchtime smoke. Kind of a nice, cool, overcast, coastal kind of day for a change. I like the heat, I mean, I gotta say. But too much of a good thing is never good. So this makes sleeping so much easier as well. Smoking some Balkan Supreme in a BP jug. The pipe that nobody seems to know its origin or history, but that rustication just says custom built all over it. Or somebody just said, hey, I figured out the custom built rustication and I like it, so I'm just going to use it in the 50s, 60s, maybe. I don't know. Nobody seems to know. Bill Unger in the Custom Built Bible, he doesn't seem to know. So, oh well. Some men's morning breakfast club. That's when they sent me a mug when I was a guest on what, April 14th, 2020. That was fun. Thanks, guys. I use that mug quite a bit. It's just a nice size. One thing I have discovered is as your mustache gets longer, you tend to draw, it's not very, it drips. Little drips on the end of the hair. Small price to pay, but there it is. If you like, I wear white undershirts usually, and the front of them, it looks like I'm a total slob, you know. Oh well. These wide shellables, so you have to keep it lit and kind of keep stuff stirred up so it all burns evenly, because it tends not to burn evenly. So just a problem with that shape, you know, pot shape, I guess you'd say. But isn't that just thick and it just has a rightness about it. So this morning I was continuing to work on the DR brush mower. I still haven't gotten it. So it's so embarrassing. You know, when you're a guy, it's as if you should know how to fix stuff. You know, I just have that feeling. I get that sense. And of course that's false. You learn something like you learn anything else, and some people have a sort of a mental predilection for figuring things out and problem solving. Bravo to them. Although it can manifest as ADHD compulsiveness too. But if you got it, it's good. I think it's useful. And you know, I just don't really mentate that way. In high school, I bought a little used, like a 1971 or 70 Honda 175. It was a CB 175, so it was a little road-going version. 175 cc's. Now, many lawnmowers are bigger than that, you know. But it was a little vertical twin. And man, I rode all over Colorado and western Nebraska and almost to Kansas and almost to Oklahoma on that thing. I had such a good time. Just out exploring, you know. It was great. Colorado offers a lot of good riding, even if it's cold. And that bike, I remember, the speed limit was 55 at that time, everywhere. And at 55, I was doing like 6,000 RPM. In fifth gear. It was like a screamer. But it ran great, and I was too big for it, of course, but it suited me. I actually got my first traffic tickets with that bike, 175cc. Of course, it doesn't take much in town to go over 35 miles an hour. So it was just bad judgment. But eventually, I couldn't get it started. And it was like, oh my God, what is the problem here? So being the smart person I wasn't, and having had a shop class in junior high where we took a lawnmower engine apart and put it back together, I was emboldened, and I thought, maybe it's a valve that's, I just didn't know what I was doing. There was no YouTube to refer to, so, which I think has become everybody's source of knowledge, actually. How do you do that? I don't know. I'll look it up on YouTube. And you'll get probably 3 or 4 different answers, but one of them will probably work. So, however, so far, not in the case of the DR mower. Anyway, back to my embarrassing story. So this poor, innocent little Honda 175, I took it apart. Oh my God. I mean, I took it down to, took the heads off, took the cylinder block off. Oh my gosh. And of course, I didn't have all the tools or the manuals to put it back together. And at that point, I started driving a car, and that was distracting. If I had had just the motorcycle, I think I might have found somebody to take pity on me and maybe put it back together. You know what I think it was just the battery. So embarrassing, so embarrassing. This is like the housewife who can't cook, because nobody ever taught her. She didn't grow up in a house that where mom cooked homemade meals, and that's more and more the case. And yet women feel like, well, I should know how to do that, No. But as guys, we definitely labor under the misconception that we should know how to fix things like small engines, Oh, I can just figure it out, Oh, let me take it apart and never get it back together again. So it was truly a basket case. It wasn't in a basket, but it was in a box. And eventually, one of my dad's dental patients, I'm sure he was rolling his eyes and saying, oh yeah, my son took this little motorcycle apart and it's sitting in the garage. And the guy probably said, oh, well, he was one of those guys. Oh, I'll take it. And you want to give it to me? And so my dad did. And hopefully it had a happy ending and got ridden and loved. I felt very guilty about that for years. It was just poor judgment. But I didn't have the genetics, as it were. My dad was just not a fix-it kind of guy. He just, I don't know, he had many other great qualities. But as a backyard mechanic, no. And he had many social contacts. He was that kind of guy. And so he knew probably many guys who were backyard mechanics and could fix stuff. Or he'd just take it to the dealer where he bought the lawnmower or whatever. So this thing's way old. It's from the 80s. And God, it was running great for years, But there's no dealer to take it to. And it's just a 8 horsepower single cylinder Briggs & Stratton. It's very standard stuff. So it should be easy to figure out. I went on one, how to clean out your carbs. So I did that. And it ran for a while, and then it'll just run for a minute, That tells me the valve seat maybe where the float valve closes off the fuel. Tells me maybe there's something askew there. So I kind of cleaned all that up and carb cleaner, and you can't take the seat out. It's like pressed in. So Sometimes, you know, they'll have a little indentation you can stick a screwdriver in and then unscrew it and really clean it up, or replace it. But not in this case, not with this carburetor. So on YouTube, you know, I did that several times. No change. So one guy said, well, you know, just buy a new carburetor on eBay. It's cheap. They're less than 20 bucks. And sure enough, you can find them on. So I did. I ordered one. I got it in on Saturday. At noon, I went down to the post office just before they closed for the weekend. And you know, it's like, it's a made in China carburetor, which is fine. It's nicely made. Actually better than the one that was on there. The castings are better and, you know, that kind of stuff. But everything's metric. It was a holiday weekend. The hardware was closed. So I did as much as I could, but I did finally get it installed. Now it doesn't even run for a minute and die. It just doesn't even start. So my buddy, well, a friend of mine who I do fire department stuff with, he said, and he is mechanically inclined, he said, well, you know, you should empty your gas out. Sometimes the gas is just bad. So I'm doing that. And check for spark. But he said it's probably not spark, because if it runs for a while then stops, a spark is usually go or no go. And so that makes sense to me. But man, amateur mechanics such as myself can waste so much time. I probably spent 12, 15 hours or more on trying to get the damn thing running. And then I thought, nah, I'm just going to buy a used one on Craigslist, right? So there are always a couple of DR mowers on Craigslist. So you email somebody and you get no response. Like, they sold it, but they haven't taken their ad down, and now they're not responding to the ad. That seems to be the norm, actually. And then one of my neighbors said, oh, well, I go to OfferUp, or I think that's it, OfferUp.com. It's kind of a Craigslist alternative. So I went on there, and she said it's much better because less scammy, and you have to, like, sign in or something. So I set up an account. Well, there was one on there that looked promising. So I sent him an email. I haven't heard back in 2 days. So that's just the norm for that. And, well, just take it to a small engine repair shop. Well, I've called around. There are not many of them anymore. Those people seem to be dying off. And they're just like going crazy with business. So it'll be a month or a month and a half before they can look at it. So I'm tempted just to buy a new one, even though they're just expensive as can be. So that's my dilemma. They actually have, coming back to Honda, DR does make now one of their mowers with a Honda engine, commercial engine. That has possibilities. You know, the Honda NC700X I have, and just a lot of experience with Honda stuff. I mean, it's pretty good. So, but you don't get as much mower. They kind of get a premium for that engine. It's on a smaller mower, which actually might be okay, because those things get heavy to drag around, and they have reverse, but you get them in, like out at Big Valley, in a muddy hole, and reverse doesn't do you that much good. I think you just have to manhandle it out of there. So 100 extra pounds for a 22 horse Briggs and Stratton that gets probably bad mileage and costs more may not be the way to go. So anyway, it's a first world problem. Yeah, I just love these BP jumps. Just the shape, it just is nice. Very nice, very nice. But what I don't want to do is repeat my Honda CB175 experience and take the damn thing apart and then not be able to get it back together again. You know, I did try putting it together, but you need the ring, cylinder ring, or the piston ring, compressors and all that stuff, and little feeler gauges and a manual to tell you, you know, what to do and how to do it. I was blissfully unaware, or not blissfully, frustratedly unaware. Like everything else, this will be resolved.